We finally started to get a little bit of snow up here in Montana. This year, the winter has been a little bit late to show up, so this is pretty exciting to see the seasons finally changing. It is hovering right above freezing, so the snow is probably not going to stay for very long, and the horses are perfectly comfortable out in it. Typically, this time of year, I do a lot of reflecting, and here lately I've been trying to decide what kind of horse to bring home next. I've got a pretty solid routine down for my chores now. With all of the horses happy and healthy, this is the perfect time for me to start scheming my plans for next year.
Hey, buddy. Hey. Stewie. 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 Hi.
I've found a few indoor arenas that I can haul to this winter and get Stewie started under saddle and also Prim. With all of the extra things I was doing this spring and summer, I didn't have a whole lot of time to devote to riding this year. Stewie did need an extra year to grow. He is 5 this year. I could have started Prim a long time ago, but I think deep down I really don't want to sell her, and as soon as she's broke, that will be the plan for her. Selling one of these horses after I get them all trained up and healthy is probably the hardest part for me. While I would love to keep them forever, if none of the horses ever left, then I would have no more room to get new ones.
Pete. Goodbye, Pete.
I've been going back and forth about what kind of horse I want to get next. It seems like there's always so many that need help. It is really hard to make a decision. There is one big auction left this year that I was planning to go to. Wild horses like Scarlet often show up there, and I would love to have another little wild horse like her. Typically this time of year, there's also horses like Nigel that need help. I thought really hard about getting another tiny horse for Nigel to be friends with, but him and Frisco Bill have really been getting along great lately. Even though they don't share their pens, they do spend a lot of time next to each other. This time of year, there's also a lot of horses that are being retired, so a few more horses like Ziggy. Every potential new horse does come with an extra set of chores and responsibilities. At this point, I don't know that I can handle taking care of another very old special needs horse.
Buddy. Frisco Bill. Hey, old boy. Come on.
Even though it is snowing, the temperature outside right now is not too cold. It's actually very comfortable. I have been having to soak feed for Frisco and Nigel for quite a while now, so that does present an extra set of problems when it dips below freezing. Trying to figure out what kind of horse would fit best in my current situation is something I'm always thinking about.
Nigel. Come on, Nigel.
A lot of the extra mental stress that comes with preparing for winter out here has been lifted recently. I have my hay for the winter. Everybody has friends and they are getting along great. Going to a loose horse sale to pick out a new horse does present an extra set of challenges for me.
Hey, Gus. Bye.
It is still pretty hard for me to go to a sale where there are lots of horses that need help. Since I am almost maxed out on the amount of time that I have to care for these animals, I do have to be very careful about what I bring home from the sale. No matter how many horses I currently have in training, it seems like I'm always scheming for the next one. Every time I've thought about getting a new horse this year, my mind keeps wandering back to the possibility that maybe it's time for me to adopt another Mustang. It has been quite a number of years since I've adopted one of these wild horses, but my interest was sparked again when I attended an auction that they had rather close to my house. I have done a handful of makeovers and I was a tip trainer for a very short time, and these Mustangs always present their own set of challenges. They had some really good looking horses at this auction and also some super cute burros. I had a lot of self-control but decided to go check out the new Mustang challenge that they had in Las Vegas. Horses in this competition had almost a full year of training before they had to come and show, which is very intriguing to me. Traditionally, a lot of the makeovers that they have for these Mustangs are 100-day makeovers, so 3 months is not a lot of time to get this done. I would love to do another makeover with a much longer timeline, so just as a precaution, I filled out an application to adopt a Mustang from the Bureau of Land Management. I've never done this online, but they had a really neat program where you could draw out your barn layout, put the gates down. This is a very loose representation of my barn. You can see the attached run and the little stall. To adopt a horse from the BLM, you do have to follow some pretty strict guidelines for their housing. There is a minimum requirement for the area that you have available to the horse. Most states do require that the horses have access to a solid 3-sided shelter to protect them from the elements. One of the other big requirements is having a fence tall enough and strong enough to contain these wild horses. A lot of you guys may know that Scarlett, even though she was a tiny little baby when I got her, did have a problem respecting my fence. At only 3 months old, she did break through one of my solid wooden fences and she did jump over my panels a few times. So that is a requirement that is really important if you are thinking about getting a wild horse. The application that you fill out online does have a lot of rules and regulations that you need to follow. It is really important to understand exactly what you're getting into when you fill out one of these applications. I have lots of experience with wild horses from the BLM and also off reservations, so I am fully aware of what is going to happen when I choose to adopt one of these horses. The application also requires the information for your veterinarian. If a Mustang is going to be your first horse, which I honestly could not suggest to most people, a veterinarian that understands Mustangs and is okay with providing medical care to them is an important part of your application. This little girl is one of the last Mustangs that I started. She was super cool. This was before I moved to Montana and I was living in a much better climate for riding horses over the winter. After attending the new Mustang Challenge event in Las Vegas, I started scheming pretty heavily about what I would have to do to get a Mustang in time to halter break it before real winter got here. There were a few in-person adoptions a few months ago, but I just wasn't ready for a horse at that time. There are a couple of ways that you can adopt a Mustang. One of them that a lot of people are using now is the online corral. If you don't have access to a holding facility and you cannot attend an in-person event, this is how most people shop for their Mustangs. I have been keeping a really close eye on a few horses, and this will be the last internet adoption for the year. These horses are only available at very specific pickup locations across the United States. There are 2 pickup options available for those people wanting to adopt on the East Coast. These horses will actually ship for free from whatever holding facility they're at, so that is a big bonus if you're looking to get one. Each pickup facility will have certain dates that you're supposed to come and get your new Mustang. Even though I do live in the western part of the country, there are typically no pickups available in Montana. The closest one to me is going to be the Boise Corral, which the pickup is the beginning of December. I had a horse picked out at the last internet adoption that I thought got bought, but I noticed him on this one again. I filled out my application the day the bidding started and it was approved in a day or two. The last time I had an approval for buying a Mustang online was 2 years ago. I did not get one. Here at the bottom, it says I can basically get whatever kind of horse I want. I could get a young one, an older one. I could get a burro if I wanted. They do have some trained animals available every so often, but I am going to try and get a horse that is approved for the competition. As soon as my application was approved, I went and I submitted a bid for my favorite horse. Prices start at their normal adoption fee, which is $125. This is actually the very first time I've ever bid on a horse through the internet adoption. I would much prefer to see the horses in real life, but this is pretty much my last chance to get a horse if I want to have it for the winter and spend as much time with it as possible. I wanted to show you guys some of the horses that I picked out that I did not bid on. This has got to be my favorite one in the entire sale. You guys know that I love a super cute little brown horse. This guy is 14 hands. He is 3 years old and he's coming from Twin Peaks, California. The reason that I did not bid on this horse is because the pickup locations are just way too far for me to drive in the wintertime. It would be at least a 12-hour drive if the weather is perfect, and that is something that I personally just don't want to do this time of year. Since I haven't done this before, I didn't realize that I can actually only bid on one horse. I think you can only have a winning bid on one horse. I know that I could probably call them up and be approved for two fairly easily, but for now I'm just going to stick to one. I'll show you guys some other horses that I had picked out. This girl is actually from the same herd management area as that cute little meatball I just showed you. She is a lot older and she does have a little bit of a harder eye than the last horse. Something interesting about this girl is she does have a freeze brand on her hip. This freeze brand is used to identify the horses when they're in long-term holding. Given her age and the fact that she's just a plain brown horse, it's very likely that she's been up for adoption several times and nobody got her. This girl is a super pretty moving horse. She's very balanced. She's not too spooky. I think her color and her age have a lot to do with why nobody has picked her yet. She has a really cute way of moving. She's very balanced. I wish that there was a pickup for her closer to me, but just like that other horse, it's just too far away for me to drive this time of year. This little guy is another one that I picked out. This is a 3-year-old and he's from Antelope. Oh, I almost forgot. I picked this guy out specifically to show you guys what a more reactive Mustang looks like in these videos. Of course, these horses are wild, so they're going to be a little bit jazzed up by being all alone, and this guy you can see is just a little bit more forward moving, and when something happens he's just a tad more reactive to it. I would imagine that this one is going to need a little bit more downtime just to get used to his environment when he gets to his new adopter's place. This is one that would be super fun for me to have, but probably not the right choice if I was going to be competing. There are a lot of people that get very excited about these internet adoptions, and typically I pick out a few horses that have bids on them that are way too high. This gorgeous mare was another one of my top picks. She has very good confirmation for the discipline that I would want to take her in, and she is extremely calm in the pen. Most of the horses do have a video attached that's just a couple seconds and you can kind of see them move around. One of the things I like about seeing these horses in person is you do get to see them move around a lot more. You can see them trot and interact with the other horses. My first impression of this horse was really good. She just has a nice build. She has a good weight and she seems really sensible. The only other thing I would have liked to see in this video was her just trot around a little bit so I could kind of see how she moves out. She's 4 years old and she's available at the pickup in Idaho, but she does have a few bids on her already. Another little mare that I picked out was this gorgeous girl. This horse has a ton of presence just when she's moving around doing her normal horse things. Of course, the quality of training that goes into these horses is really important, but for a competition Mustang, it never hurts to have one that's very flashy and memorable. This girl already has a bid for $225, so there's a few people that are interested in her. Every Mustang I've ever had, I have never paid above the $125 normal adoption fee. It seems like on the internet adoption, people are willing to spend more money, especially because people on the East Coast do get free shipping with the horse. Without the free shipping, sending a horse across the country could cost probably $2,000–$3,000. So if you spend a little bit more money on it, I think some people justify it in that way. I really love this horse, but I am not going to get too excited about her because I know her price is probably going to go up quite a bit more. When I'm shopping through this online auction, it is kind of cool to check and see how expensive the horses are getting. It's always kind of interesting to see what prices people are paying for the most expensive horses. For now, I'm just going to filter by the corrals that are within a 10-hour radius of my house. Typically, the internet adoption auction lasts for a week, so people have already put in quite a few bids. This is the most expensive horse so far in my general area. He's $1,700, and you might notice that he does have a halter on. This is one of the horses available from the Mantle Ranch, and they typically have a few animals that are halter broke, or sometimes they do have some that are saddle started. For someone on the East Coast that may not have a Mustang Gentler available to them, this could be a really good alternative to buying one that is completely wild. Here is another horse for Wyoming. It looked like there's only a handful available for pickup from Wheatland, which is about 8 hours from my house. I did have my eyes on this one, but he is a really striking Palomino, so I didn't really think too hard about him. Another horse that is getting a lot of attention for this internet adoption is this guy who only has one ear. He was available for the last internet adoption and got snapped up really quick, but I guess they decided not to get him. They couldn't pick him up. Something happened, so he's available again. It's kind of a bummer because the last internet adoption, they had a buy it now option, so I tried really hard to get this horse for $125, but I was just not fast enough. He seems a little bit more reactive, probably because he's missing an ear, but overall this horse generally seems pretty calm. He is a good size, and at 5 years old, he would be the perfect age for me to bring home and get started right away. When I was looking at this horse last month, I did notice, however, that he is a little bit weak in his stifles. He's just a little bit loosey-goosey back there, and that is the one thing that I wasn't 100% sure about this horse. Getting a horse from the online auction, there's only so much you can tell from the videos. While it is really nice that you have the option to put this horse in slow-mo for the video and kind of assess his movement that way, it would be a whole lot nicer if I could see him move in real life. I was pretty excited about this horse, and I did speak with my vet about the ear. I know he's been in holding for quite a long time, so if he was going to have trouble with it, he probably already would have. Kind of a bummer he is almost already at $1,000, but that's just how it goes sometimes. So if you're going to be shopping for a horse on this platform, you've got to be prepared to be disappointed. This is another really pretty 4-year-old mare. She looks a lot like that other one that had kind of the cool facial marking. I'm not going to show you guys the horse that I did bid on because I don't want him getting bid up as the auction goes on. This mare looks really cool. She's built kind of uphill, so if I was searching for a Mustang that I wanted to take down the more English route, this is the girl I would definitely pick. It says she's only 14'1", which is kind of short, but it's always hard to tell how accurate the heights are, and with these horses being young and still growing, there's always the possibility that they'll get to you and they will be a little bit taller. This girl is a little bit more frantic in the pen. She's kind of got her head up like a giraffe. This is about how Scarlet moves around now. For this particular horse, I would be a little bit more worried that she would test the integrity of your fence. The ones that kind of get a far off look in their eyes and kind of stick their head up to see over the panels are, in my experience, the ones that will try and jump out. If I slow this girl's video down to half speed, you really can see that she is a pretty moving horse, even though she is a little bit reactive at the moment. Every trainer is going to go through these horses differently, but for me, I want to see a horse that's balanced and has some idea of how to properly carry their bodies. A naturally balanced, free-moving horse is going to be so much easier to train, especially for the competition, because you do want these horses to get rather far along. That 4-year-old was super cute. I'm just going to pop back over and compare her to the one that I really liked. This girl is from the same HMA. She is about the same size, but as you can tell, this girl just looks a lot better. She's more balanced. She has more muscling. She just has a little bit more presence to her, which for a show horse is going to be just another little feather in your cap. It's kind of cool to see these two girls side by side. The last one was definitely built a little bit more uphill, and this girl, her body type is very close to most of my quarter horses. My plan for the horse that I'm adopting is to take them to the show in Vegas and then again to the show that they have in Kentucky. So the Mustang I picked has to be able to hopefully do the Western events and then English as well. Since these horses are gathered from the wild, a lot of them will come with injuries. Just like that little Palomino horse, this girl has some damage to her ear. Thankfully, hers wasn't ripped completely off, but it does look like there is some damage to the cartilage. I really wanted to like this girl and put her on my list, but as soon as I went through the pictures, you could tell that she was a little bit more frantic than some of the other horses. When I popped in to look at her video, she is a really nice looking horse. She has a nice long neck. She's pretty balanced throughout her body, but you can tell that she is a little bit more reactive, and I do think it's because that ear does not function as it should. I don't think she's a bad horse. She's actually a super cute moving little filly, but I do think her adopter will have to go into it with the understanding that she is going to have some problems surrounding that hurt ear. I do think this little girl, once she gets the scares out of her, would make a super cute little hunter jumper. When going through these horses, you do have to use your imagination a little bit and extrapolate what they'll look like on a different feeding program and being exercised and probably relaxing a bit more. I am going to put her on my list because I do want to see what she goes for in the end. This is a very similar horse that is from the same HMA, so let's take a quick look at her. It's kind of cool to see how these horses have similarities and how they're a little bit different. This horse is also a really cute moving horse. She's got kind of a plain, boring color. She is from Twin Peaks, which there are a few of them available for pickup in Idaho. This little girl is a tiny bit reactive, but you can see she doesn't have a lot of the flight instinct. She just takes a couple little quick steps and then she's able to kind of gather her mind and see what's going on around her. I wasn't able to record this with video, but when you're on the site, you can actually hear what's going on around the horses while they're reacting. So that can give you a little bit of insight into how they're going to act. My plan of attack for this internet auction was to keep an eye on the horses that have been through a few times that I knew I already liked. Even though I have already put in a bid that's quite a bit more than what it's at now, I am going to pick out a few horses as alternates. This is another one of the horses that I picked out that has a lot of presence as they're moving around. To me, this girl looked like she maybe was in charge of her herd when she was out in the wild. She hasn't been in holding for too long. She's been in for 2 years. When I watched this horse's video, however, she did look like she was a little bit more on the reactive side. It really is not a big deal for me, but I would really kind of like to take a break and have a Mustang that's a little bit easier to train. I have quite a few reactive horses right now, and it would just be nice to have a horse that's a little bit more dull. Those horses just tend to do a little bit better in the competition environment because they're going to a new place and being exposed to a lot of new sights and sounds. So while this mare is gorgeous, I am going to mark her, but I don't think she will be the right pick if I wanted to actually do well at the competition. This horse had a lot of chrome, which just means there's a lot of white on them. My horse Goose has a lot of chrome. He's got a nice blaze on his face. He's got really nice white socks. This is a look that a lot of people really like. This one is from Foxhog, which I haven't seen a lot of these available during this adoption. This horse looks a little bit unsure of everything that's going on around them. To me, this horse looks like the kind of horse that would probably test the fencing a little bit. I didn't really get to see her move around too much, so I'm not going to put her on my list. She also does already have some bids on her, so since I'm not really excited about her, I am not going to plan on having her as one of my backups. I would like to see how much she goes for, so I did put a little heart next to her and continue looking at some of the other horses available for sale. This girl was super cute. I did find quite a few mares that I really liked the looks of, but at this point in time, I would much rather have a gelding. We are still planning on moving, and once I get this new Mustang docile down to where their halter broke, I should be able to turn them out with a larger group of horses. Scarlet, my reservation horse, has been growing up by herself, and she has really gotten to be quite an independent little girl, so I don't worry too much about her having a herd. But for these Mustangs that have lived in holding for a few years and they get to hang out with lots of other horses all the time, I think it does benefit them to get them out in a herd as quickly as you can. This little bay horse was super cute. They had a handful of horses that were actually born at the facility, so that means their mamas were rounded up and then they gave birth while they were in holding. So this horse is still a BLM Mustang. He is pretty reactive, but he was never actually out in the wild. It's kind of a bummer for a lot of these horses, but they do sometimes tend to be a little bit easier to gentle because they've been around people very limitedly their whole lives. They've seen people around the holding facility, they've been fed supplemental hay, so it does make a little bit of a difference. I continued going through the horses until I found one that I really liked. This little guy was born in the facility in 2001, so he's a 3-year-old that has never been actually wild. He is just a plain brown horse with just two, I think it looks like 2 white socks there on the hind and then a little stripe and a snip. He looks a little bit scraggly from the pictures and the video, but when I looked at his video, I was really impressed with how calm he was going around the pen. If my goal for this Mustang is to actually be successful at the show and qualify for the finals, fingers crossed, this is the exact kind of horse that I want to be bidding on. This is probably, in my opinion, the best-minded horse that I've looked at so far. And while he's not a very flashy horse, he is very balanced in his movements and he is pretty relaxed going around the pen. This is how I would expect most Mustangs to go after they've moved to their new home and had time to relax, but this guy just seems to be like this normally. I thought really hard about not putting this horse's video up because I would like to have this guy as my first alternate in case the horse I already bid on goes up too high. He's a little bit covered in mud and he's got his winter hair and it looks like some of the other horses maybe chewed off his tail, but I can just imagine this horse looking so much better in the springtime after he's been fed up, and I think he would be relatively easy for me to start under saddle. I'm gonna mark him as a favorite so I don't lose track of him and kind of continue going on looking at the other horses. This one is a good example to see right after that other one. He is pretty curious, but he's a little bit more reactive. This one was also born in the facility, so he's a little bit more relaxed about moving around the pen and observing things around him. But as you can see, he's just a little bit more reactive than that other guy. Here is another horse that's seemingly pretty outgoing, but also a bit more reactive. Just when I thought I had all of my ducks in a row with my top 2 picks, I found this guy, which is very, very similar to the 3-year-old that I want, but does not have a pickup available in Idaho. They are from the same HMA and their faces look almost identical. I almost thought it was the same horse for a second. This cute little meatball is the one that's in Nevada right now that I cannot pick up in Idaho, and this guy is available for pickup in Idaho. The only difference between these 2 horses is this one does look a little bit sun bleached. It almost looks like he might have a little bit of curly in him. There are a few herd management areas that do have curly Mustangs. You can see he does have quite a nice little wave to his hair. This could just be because of their winter coats and he's a little bit sweaty, but there is a possibility that he is part curly. This horse is also sale eligible, so that means I could bid on him and actually not have to adopt him. He could be outright mine for the purchase price. I'm not sure how I feel about that, because in the event that this horse has something really wrong with it, I kind of like the option of being able to bring them back to BLM and having them sent to long-term holding where they can kind of live the rest of their lives. I spent quite a bit of time comparing these 2 horses. This little one that is down in Nevada is a little bit more reactive, but he is such a cute little moving horse. One thing you'll notice about him is that he is very balanced as well. He has a double mane, so that means he is so balanced that half of his hair is falling on one side of his neck and the other half is on the other side. That is a really good sign that naturally this horse is very balanced and carries themselves around quite nicely, which you can obviously see from this video. This guy is only 3 years old and he's, I believe, 14 hands. Yep, 14 hands. The other horse is 7 years old and he is 15 too, so that is something I'm taking into consideration. Right now I'm at the stage in this internet adoption where I'm trying to funnel down my favorite horses, ones that I would actually bid on in case the one I did already put a few bids on did not come home with me. While I think this one would probably be the easiest to docile down because he is quite calm already, I have a feeling that I would enjoy one with a little bit more spice. I did a little test to see if I was maybe actually able to bid on him already, but it looks like I'm just going to add him to my watch list and kind of see what happens. It also looks like since I saw him a few minutes ago, someone has put a bid in on him. There are some things about the internet adoption that I don't like. You can actually back out of your bids at any time during the auction, and some people use this in kind of a sneaky way to get horses that they really want and then back out of them. This little guy had actually been bid up at the last 2 internet adoptions, so I didn't bid on him, but this one, if he's still here and the weather's looking nice, there is a very slim chance that I might bid on him. It looks like he already has a few bids on him and he is at $205 currently. As I'm going back and checking the horses that I tagged, this girl, I just wanted to show her to you guys because she is a really beautiful horse, but too reactive for what I'm looking for at this point. Even though the weather in Montana is not very nice, I do have a lot of Mustang friends up here that do train throughout the winter. The Mustang I bid on is 5 years old, so the same age as Stewie. With Stewie being a half Mustang, I think it would be really great for him to get another Mustang friend. Unfortunately, I will have to wait a few more days to see if I actually win one of the horses. Thank you guys so much for watching and stay tuned for the next video.